talk about several different things, but kind of the focus is going to kind of be, it's a general business of music kind of class. Traditionally, when I do this at other universities, it's 4 90-minute classes. So this is kind of an overview of all of those squished into one. You know, but just to give you an idea, some of those topics are, the first class is called I Love It When a Plan Comes Together. Yeah, the second one is How Do I Contract a Contract? And the third class is My Style Still in Style? And the fourth one is all about selling your product. So you might hear about them in the future, but I'm just giving you a heads up. This is kind of a smash up of all those different things, and it's going to cover a lot of different areas. But before I get started, I'm going to talk a little bit about the concert that I did the other day, Wednesday. So if you have any questions, I always start my programs, classes with ask. Don't wait till the end, because I don't want to be responsible for 30 questions and no answers. So if you got a question, just ask me. You know, we're all adults here. We can take it from there. And I know most of you at this point, so it's not that stressful of a thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the business, how to make it happen, your approach at gigs, things you need to consider, things you might not need to consider. But first of all, I want to start off with a couple books that I think you guys should definitely have. The first one is this one, The Entrepreneur Mind. It's an easy read. I read it in 3 days. It's not that many pages, intentionally. Let's see, like 240 pages. I recommend getting it.
Who's the author on that?
D.Johnson. He's my brother. Sounds very funny, but he has one of the top 10 media companies in the country. A lot of people don't know it's him. But I remember when he wrote this book, he said he was going to write it in 6 months. He's going to write a page every day, and that's what he did. So I recommend it because it's to the point. And I don't care what your business is, but if you read this, you're going to get something out of it. And I have a bunch of musicians reading it. I read it, I look at it. I looked at it for his class. I read it several times. And he works with Bank of America. He works with Amex. He works with Harry Belafonte. And he's a musician, so he understands, you know, from a musician's perspective. He plays piano well. So I recommend this because it's easy, too. It's terms that you guys will all understand. It's not over anybody's head. And he's got some funny stories in here about how he started his business. So that's the first one. The next one is All You Need to Know About the Music Business. If you ever heard about that one, it's by Donald Passman. He updates it every 2 years. It's about 512 pages. It's pretty thick. But about every 2 years, I kind of reread it. Once you've read it once, you have a pretty good idea. So when he reissues it, you can get to the things you need to faster. But that covers everything. I mean, percentages, contracts, I mean, the current rates on CDs, everything is in there. If you read that book and you have some questions, you might want to consult a lawyer. And this cat is a lawyer who wrote the book. And he does deals for like Nicki Minaj. I mean, he's doing it for everybody, so he's in the middle of it. So I read that when I was in college. And like I said, now, every 2 years, I kind of read over it again. Because there's some laws that change, some things that stay the same. So once you read it once, like I said, you'll be pretty good on that. So I recommend that. As I was coming up here, as I drive back and forth to Minneapolis a lot, I listen to a lot of different podcasts. And one I was listening to today, a guy was talking about the future and the past and the present, and how they all meet. And he started his podcast off with this quote, which I thought was very interesting. After he said it, I had to stop it and think about it for about 10 minutes. But he said, today is yesterday's tomorrow. I had to think about that. I said, today is yesterday's tomorrow. And how does that affect me and what I do? So I started thinking about different gigs and business plans in this class. And I thought it was very applicable because where you're trying to go as far as with your life and your business, whatever it is, you have to already be thinking that and have a plan today. Because if you don't have a plan today, that means tomorrow you're already behind. So just think about that concept throughout the day. I think that's very important to be aware of. And just how you set up different things according to what you want to do, whether you want to be a full-time musician or not be a full-time musician. But that leads into the first thing I like to tell a lot of my friends and students is you got to have a plan. And I say this all the time. You got to have a plan, which means you got to have some goals. You got a plan. That's why the first class I usually teach is, I love it when the plan comes together. I call it the A-Team class because of Hannibal. He always had a plan if you've ever seen the A-Team. You might not have liked it, but they knew what everybody was supposed to do. And if they executed it, it usually worked out. Even though some things did not work out, the plan generally worked out. It's the same way in music. So you kind of have to think that way. I would like to ask you guys, how many of you have a general idea what you want to do when you get out of here? Okay, so that's about 50%. So that's not bad. I always recommend people, once you come up with a plan, write it down. Like even physically write it down. A lot of us are in the habit now of typing it, putting it into a computer. But I think there's something about just the physical aspect of writing it down. Because as you write it down, you have to think about what you're writing. Okay? And it's a good thing to type it up too. Like if you come to my place, you'll see I got a list of goals on the wall. So when anybody comes in there, they're going to say, oh, is this what you're supposed to be doing? I'm like, yeah. So I'm already held accountable. Which leads to the next thing. Once you get those goals in that plan, you have to have a way to be accountable for it. For me, it's announcing it to you guys at different gigs. Because someone will email me, somebody will call me, somebody will show up. And they'll say, hey, are you still learning those monk tunes? Why are you only on the letter E? It's been 2 months. As a joke, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, you're actually kind of right. I'm jiving, which keeps me kind of on my toes. So that's how I found a way for me to keep myself responsible about, just playing and being where I need to be. So once you have a plan, you have to figure out how are you going to execute that plan and have those goals. So, writing it down is a great place to start, and letting people know, and becoming very active about it. There's a couple things I want to give you guys, so you might want to write this down or record it. And some of these topics are from this book, The Entrepreneurship Mind. These are 15 different things. I'm just going to talk a little bit about them and then go into some other aspects of the business that you guys should be thinking about. First thing is, think big. Sounds crazy, but you got to think big. If you only think about playing $50 gigs, you'll probably play $50 gigs. I can tell you there are gigs out there that pay $5,000, $10,000 a gig. Why? Because I've been on them. So it does happen in jazz. Okay? That's not even talking outside of jazz. Okay, so that's why I say you got to have a plan, get it together, think big. Don't sell yourself short, because there's going to be plenty of other people who are going to try to do that for you. Somebody's got to think big. Okay? Second one is, don't waste time. It's very easy to waste time. Now, when I say waste time, that doesn't mean do not have fun. A lot of people get the two confused. You can still have fun. You still need to rest. A lot of improvement comes in rest time, whether it's music or sports. But the general main, element, factor is to not waste time. If you cannot waste time, you're going to get to your goal a lot faster. Okay, but a lot of that goes back to you having a plan. The next thing is ask for help. If you need help, ask somebody. Most people who will offer you help will give it to you. Here's the thing though. Most people that will say they'll give you help, once you find them, most people ask the wrong questions. and you say, what is the right question? First of all, you don't want to ask somebody who can help you something that you can figure out on your own. For instance, if I'm a piano player and I want to play in the key of C major better, maybe I better learn to play the C major scale. I don't want to go to somebody like a Wynton Marsalis and say, how do I play better in C major? You know, it's like, it's not going to help you. It's going to show that person that you really haven't invested the time in your own business, which our business is music. You know, so you might want to ask your friends, look online, do as much history and homework as you can up front before you get to that point. Okay, the next thing is, a bad economy is a great opportunity. Okay, a bad economy is a great opportunity. Now, how does that work? When the economy's not doing that well, people generally are not hiring the arts. Okay? Doesn't mean that everyone is not, because you can still make money in what you do. But that means there's a lot of venues that are willing to have you play but aren't willing to pay. Now, ultimately, we all want to make a living doing what we do. Okay? But that gives you an opportunity to say, you know what? We've been rehearsing this music for 2 months. Let's just see what it sounds like at this club down the street. Let's just say, look, let's just go play one set. A restaurant would be happy with that. So a bad economy can be a great opportunity, because as soon as it comes around, you know, you're going to probably be the first person they call if they're going to pay, because you know the restaurant, you know the situation is set up. You've been friendly. They like you. If you go in there and you're not a likable person or a people person, you might be shooting yourself in the foot. You know, so you have to think about those things. Okay, so a bad economy can be a great opportunity. Adapt and change quickly. That's the next one. It's just like a jazz tune. You can take it at 240 on the metronome. You can also take it at 50. You better adapt. If you don't adapt, there's going to be a problem. And the problem is probably you won't be hired back. And that's how business people think about it. You know, when you try to get a business together, or you need some money from a bank, and you have your whole scheme together, you go in and talk to them and tell them, well, you know, I have this great idea. I have this band of all girls, and there's one guy, and all the girls are going to wear white, and I'm going to wear black. You know, the businesses, they really don't want to hear that. The people who are going to invest in your product, they want to hear, what are you doing? And they want to hear this all in about a 1-minute pitch. They want to hear what you're doing, how much money do you need, and what is their return? Okay, so you have to think about it from that aspect first. Okay, since we're talking about music, most of us want to record or teach. So if you're trying to record a CD, you got to think, okay, how am I going to get, you know, the whole music aspect together, all the elements that come with it. But you have to think about, okay, how much money am I going to need? Am I going to raise it? Am I going to save it? Am I going to go to Target and ask them for it? Am I going to go to 3M? Am I going to go to Best Buy and ask them for it? Am I going to go to Sun Country Airlines and ask them for it? These are all businesses within the Minneapolis area. And I'm telling you because I've talked to all of them. It's something that I'm not making up. And I know the CEOs, I've hung out with them, I've played for them, and I've heard them say yes and no. Okay? But you have to know what they want before you even go in there. And they want to hear all that basically in about a minute. They want to know what is the return if they invest $10,000 in you. So that's what you have to think. When you can answer those questions, then I would say you're getting close to approach them. Okay? So the next thing is always follow up. And this is most musicians do not do this. I see it every day. And the reason I can say that is because most of them don't even get the information to contact them at first. So there's no way you're going to follow up if you haven't gotten somebody's information. Prime example is, I'm getting ready to go to Doha Qatar March and do another gig. I was there all in June. So they asked me to come back. While I was there, the local TV network came to me. They said, we want to do a special on you. Do you have any ideas? I said, yeah, cooking and jazz. I love dessert. They were like, that's perfect. They're like, what do you like? What do I like to eat?
Banana bread.
Banana bread. Wow. So, I'm like, this is not rocket science. So right now they have a banana bread named after me. It sounds crazy, but that's how it works. So they're like, yeah, let's do a cooking show on desserts since you like banana bread and cookies. I'm like, great. I was like, when I come back, I'm going to have a CD, and we're going to deal with that. And it's going to have a song that's about food. Okay, so they're like, oh, that's even more perfect. So while I was there, we're getting ready to shoot a commercial. It just so happened that the day we got ready to shoot the commercial, that the king of the country decided to step down and hand it over to his son. So that just completely shut down the whole economy, because that happens every 30 years. Okay, so the TV commercial didn't happen, but they were excited about it. So they said, well, whenever you come back, we'll pick up from where you were at. So I was like, okay. So I have all these people's information. So one of the things I have to do today when I leave here is I need to email these people and say, look, if you don't already know, I'm coming back March 1st. So get your cameras ready. And I'm coming with a CD that has a song about beans and rice. So that's what I'm saying. You have to follow up. You have to think about these things. Because if they're going to get behind you and back you, you have to follow up with the people and actually do what you're going to say you're going to do. And on my latest CD, I'll pass it around. You can look at all the titles. I wasn't joking, because I want them to know that I'm serious about what I do. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to help me. Because what I'm looking at doing, I'm going to go over there. It's probably about 500 CDs. And I'm not coming home with any of them. I'm going to sell all of them. And they're going to help me do it. That's why I say you have to follow up with these people. So that's another thing. Another thing is failure doesn't kill you. It should make you stronger. That goes back to one of the things I tell a lot of you guys in my lessons. Always record what you do. That way you can evaluate what's happening. You're going to forget 67% of the stuff you do in a performance. Okay? The way that you can get better faster is to record it, take it home, listen to it, and figure out what it is you didn't do. I'll be playing with somebody like I did a gig the other day with this guy, Azar Lawrence. Anybody ever heard of Azar? You've heard Azar Lawrence? He's from the West Coast, but he's about 62. He's a tenor saxophone player. He called me up because his piano player, one of my friends, Benito, was out with Kenny Garrett. So we started doing a gig. I recorded it. Come to find out, this guy, he's written 3 hits for Earth, Wind & Fire, has a house in New York City and a house in L.A. Okay? So he says, man, I hope you record everything. I was like, actually, yeah, one of my teachers told me that. He's like, man, that's the best way to do it. So he's setting up his recorder. I'm like, this guy's got plenty of records with Freddie Hubbard, all kind of people, and he's still doing it. But it's important to do that. That way you can succeed. Because there's going to be stuff you miss and forget. And you want to make sure that you can go home and figure it out so the next time it happens, you're ahead of it. A lot of people say, how do you know so many alternate changes? How many, these songs, these melodies? When I get home, I download this stuff and put it in my hard drive. And I listen to it. And then I re-listen to it 6 months later to see what I should know again. So that's a good way to make sure when I say your failure should make you stronger. Don't look at it as a negative thing. You might miss it now, but don't miss it the next time. That's all that is. Another thing is, find an enemy. Your enemy can be your best friend, even though they don't know it. That's kind of how I look at it. I say, who does what I do better? And what are they doing that I need to do so I can get where they are? So you have to think of it that way. Alright, next thing is, spend the majority of your time with people who are smarter than you. Or who are doing what you want to do. Because eventually they start to run off. Prime example, when I started running, I could barely run an 11-minute mile. I started hanging out with Olympians, guys who were trying out for the Olympics, and just picked their brain like crazy. I said, well, these guys have been doing this for several years. I went and talked to Frank Shorter. He's got a couple goals. I mean, I went to talk to guys who won, lost. I said, well, I need to do what they did because they've already run 180,000 miles in their life. Maybe I need to figure it out. And that only helped me get to the point quicker. Same thing in music. Find a good mentor. And it doesn't have to be on your instrument, but find somebody who's actually doing what you want to do and can help you get there faster. Because right now, if you're not doing that, you're just kind of swimming around in the ocean hoping that you come on an island. And right now, we don't have time for that. We want to get to where we need to be as soon as possible, the most direct way, that's the most efficient. But you don't want to cut corners. That's the thing. You still have to practice. You're going to still have to find out what it takes to do that. Okay, so that's what that is. Another thing is don't let people abuse your flexibility. Example of this is you get a gig and the club says, yeah, well, we have a stage here and nobody's on it, but we want you to play in the back, in the corner. You might say, well, you have a whole stage here with the piano on it. I say, yeah, but we'd just rather have you in the back, in the corner. You know, at some point you have to figure out where you're going to draw the line and figure out what is their reasoning for that. If they say, we want you back there because we have another band coming in and they don't have time to set up and they're the main feature, okay, that's one thing. If they say, we want you back in the corner because, you know, the other band played really loud and the people were complaining, then that's when you can step up and say, you know what, let us have the chance to not play loud. And then if it's too loud, then we'll go in the back in the corner. But there you just have to make sure that you don't let people abuse your flexibility. Yep.
If you get in a situation where they're like very adamant about like, you know, we need you to play here, and like you kind of know it's kind of a bad excuse or whatever they're coming up with, like, do you ever just kind of back down, like, okay, like whatever, I'll do what you want me to do?
It does happen. I mean, you're going to have to decipher. Sometimes you're going to have to do that. But my process is, okay, why? Give me a good reason why. But usually before I even get to that point, if I haven't been to the place already, I've looked online to see what the general setup is, or I've asked them to send me pictures. So before I even get there, you kind of have to be, and I tell people this, you have to be proactive as opposed to reactive. When that happens, you already have to have a plan in place. It's like when I went to Qatar, they said, do you have any ideas? I had 6 ideas. That was just the first one I told them, and they bought it. So you have to think about these things ahead of time, you know, to ask them why. Okay, is it the band's too loud? That's usually the first reason. Second reason might be another group's coming in, you know. So you have to think about those things before you get there so that you can have an opposition and state it nicely. Now sometimes it's just not going to happen. You might say, well, okay, well, we might have to go there. But if that's the case, which I've had happen, then I'm going to make sure that the people know there's a live band here. I'm going to say, well, if we're going to go back there, can you have somebody announce the name of this band is playing and this is the time we're playing? Because a lot of people, if they don't see you, they're going to think it's music over the intercom. And we're selling CDs or we'll be playing at this next place. Most people will say, okay, that's a happy medium. And then people say, oh, okay, they had live music there. That's part of it. The other thing I've done is during the breaks, get out and talk to people. And this is one of the biggest downfalls of young groups. And I see this all the time. I just had a meeting 3 months ago at Lincoln Center about this. They're sending groups over every 2-3 weeks, some for a month. They're playing in this club. Qatar is the richest country per capita in the world for the size. So in this club that seats about 180 if they squish them. To be a millionaire in there is nothing. There's guys I'm talking to who are all billionaires, and there's like 9 of them hanging out. Okay, so I'm thinking, wow, I've made it. Then I think, you know what? I'm not a millionaire. I haven't made it. So I got to figure out how to become buddies with these guys. Okay, so beyond the music, I have to go and talk to them. Because a lot of deals is not made just for looking at them, you saying we want them. It's a matter of your relationship with that person, that club, that restaurant. So during the breaks, when the rest of the band is gone off in the break room, they're hanging out, they're eating, doing whatever, I'm out talking to the people. I'm out shaking hands. Hey, where you from? What do you do? You got a business card? How do I get in contact with you? They ask, are you coming back anytime soon? I was like, well, I really don't know, but if I come back, I'll contact you. So I'm doing this every night for 3.5 weeks. By the time I came home, I had a stack of cards like this. Okay? So when I come home, I email pretty much everybody. I talk to them. I say, hey, you might not remember me, but this is who I was, blah, blah, blah. Some people are going to respond, some people don't. Doesn't mean they didn't get it. What I found is most people end up getting the email and just won't respond. But when they hear you're coming back, they'll come back and bring people. Or if they know you have a CD, they'll come back and buy it. Okay, so that's why I said earlier it's important to follow up and to see what's going on. You know, 'cause it's only going to help you. Now it's helping me because my brother's coming back with me this time. And people think I'm serious. He's going to do some damage. You know, he's going to make some money. I'm just a little kid then, and I'm the big brother. You know, unfortunately, I had all those cards, so he was like, "Send me all your contacts." So the past 3 days, I've been scanning all these cards because I know he's going to be hitting all these people up. You know, so that's why it's important to have these business skills and to know where they are. Like I knew exactly where they were at, went and got them, pulled them out because I knew I would need them. So you have to kind of think about that. That's why I said it's good to be proactive as opposed to being reactive. Get a mentor. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Find somebody who can help you. Stay away from unproductive people because birds of a feather flock together. You hang out with people who don't get anything done, chances are you're going to be that person. And sometimes it's hard. You might have to be that person who's getting stuff done. For me, I know I need to run every day. I need to practice when I'm off 6 to 8 hours a day. And then after I do that, everything else is extra. So then I can hang out and do what I want to do. Once those things are done, then I'm cool. If those things aren't done, I'm not cool because I'm going to be sitting around thinking about, you know what, I need to be practicing this, I need to be doing that, I need to call Delphia Marcella, I need to do this, I need to do that. Because if I don't do it now, that means a month from now, I might be sitting at home without a gig. That's why I say you have to think proactively. Okay? So the next thing is, if you have a band, you might not be the person to close a deal. And that's hard for a lot of band leaders. But it's the way it is. Somebody in your band might be a more personable person. They might be friendlier. They might be the person who can get you the gig. It might not be you. And I'm okay with that, as long as I'm on the gig. You know, so you might just have to put your ego aside and say, you know what, this guy in my band, he swims 90 minutes every day. This guy I'm trying to get to buy this product who has expendable money, he swims every day. Maybe I'll let them two talk to each other. You know, so you have to think about those things ahead of time. Act in spite of how you feel is the next thing. There's lots of times you're not going to feel like doing a gig or feel like talking to somebody. Or you might think somebody is not going to give you something because they seem pretty dark, but you're not sure, so you shy away from them. Don't judge a book by its cover. Prime example is, I'm a tour guide. I take bands and choirs all around the world every spring. My schedule's crazy. One of the schools I went to, I showed up, and the band director, he looked like he was half asleep. Cat was not interested. I was like, oh, this is going to be a rough week. After the first 3 hours, this guy, he was like one of my biggest fans. He was like, I checked you out online. I got your CDs. I know you do this. The whole trip was one of the best trips. The guy calls me 2-3 times a year. I go to his high school, deal with his bands, deal with his choir. He comes out to the gigs. You know, I think to myself, I'm glad that I was the same with him as I was with everyone else. Because at first I was like, you know what, this is not going to be fun. This guy, let me stay away from him. Let me get the younger choir director and just kind of hang out with him. But you never know. You know, so don't shoot yourself in the foot. And the last of this 15 is try and smile if you're playing. As musicians, that can get you a gig. You'd be shocked. Sounds crazy? Musicians, we make some ugly faces when we're playing. I mean, it is what it is. I was talking to Whit one day about it, and he was like, I do not want to see people when they're playing. I want to judge them solely on what they're playing. Because if I look at them, it's over. And it's true. You know, just try and smile. One day my mom saw me doing a concert, and the only thing she remembered, this concert was with Wynton, Herlin, Riley. It was like an all-star band. I said, hey Mom, how'd you like the concert? It was my mom and my dad. She said, you know, that drummer takes off his shoes when he plays. I was like, okay. But he sure was happy. I was like, me and my dad was like, what about the music? She was like, yeah, I'd come back. I was like, but what about the music? She's like, oh, you playing great. At that point, we were just like, which made me think, if that's the average person, what is she going to buy? If she goes to a CD table and she sees my CD, Joe Smo, Herlin Riley, the guy without his shoes, and the bass player, she going to say, oh, let me look at this dude without the shoes. You know? And that's how people think. So you have to kind of think about what you're portraying and what people are saying. Okay, so any questions about what I've said so far? Let me know. I've got a lot of information. You got to cut out.
Yes.
Yeah, it's cool.
Good. Thank you.
Any questions? Where are we at time? Because I have some more things I want to talk about with websites, you know, getting out to the public or whatever.
Would you mind sharing some of your personal goals that you have for yourself right now?
Oh yeah, my goals for this year, one is to learn every Thelonious Monk song by memory and be able to play it. Right now I'm at the letter E. People ask, how are you doing it? I said, for me, I'm the type of person, I start at the beginning and go straight down. When I eat clockwise. People are like, you're crazy, something's wrong with you. I'm like, yeah, I just want to make sure that I get it all done. So that's one of the goals. The other thing is learn about 6 complete Bud Powell solos. Learn Elmo Hope's music. Those 3 guys were good friends, and they would hang out in New York. They're about 3 or 4 years apart, and their musics are very similar. So that's one of my goals. One of the other goals is to do at least 3 to 4 hours of charity work a month. Another is to go to at least 1 or 2 countries I've never been to. I've been to 63 countries. Trying to think, I have a couple more. I have to look at my list, look at what's on my wall, or look at my computer. So I usually have about 6 that I say, oh, record 4 to 6 CDs this year of music. So they're all goals that are, for me, it can be done. It's not something I can do in a month, but I say in a year I should be able to do this. You know, read 25 books. That's another one of my goals, trying to make sure, which is about 1 every 2 weeks.
I guess I have a follow-up question too. Do you make short-term and long-term goal distinctions? Or do you? Okay.
Yeah, I go with both. And I'm constantly evaluating myself all the time, which is one of the things I want to talk about. You have to have some way to evaluate your growth process. Whether that's recording yourself, writing it down, asking your other friends what tunes they know. You have to figure out what works best for you because it changes for everyone. But for me, I'm constantly evaluating myself. I have a log. I can pull up my practice log right now on my computer and show it to you. This is what I practiced yesterday. This morning, I got up, I ran 10 miles, and I practiced an hour. And then I made breakfast and came here. This was all before I drove here. So, yeah, go ahead.
Just for like the practicing aspect of it, I was wondering how you managed to work up to like practicing 6 to 8 hours a day. Like,
for me, I break it up. And this is another thing a lot of people think is strange. I'm constantly in my head in school. Even though I've finished school, I'm still in school. Like if you were to look at my schedule to break down, I do my technique stuff for 90 minutes to an hour. Then after that, I work on my tunes I've got to learn for gigs. So that might be an hour to 2 hours. and then, I have lunch, and after that, then I work on transcribing 8 bars. For me, I can handle about 8 bars a day where I'm actually intaking information. More than that, I can transcribe it and play it, but I know I'm going to forget it the next day. At about 8 bars. When I was in college, I could deal with 4 bars a day. And I said, that's manageable. If I can get through 4 bars and remember it and play it the next day, that's a lot of information. Over a course of a week, and then you add that up over a course of a month, you're going to be a serious musician. And it doesn't seem like a lot at once, but it adds up. So that's kind of how I do it. I break it up in segments. And then I have a history period. People like, history? I'm like, yeah, I get on YouTube and I watch a video. It might be a Clark Terry video or a Dizzy video or a Sonny Stitt video. So that might be 45 minutes. I actually take notes on it. And if I can't do that, I'll listen to a podcast. I'll do something that has some type of historical value to it. So it's not like, when I say I'm practicing, I probably get a good 4 to 5 hours at the piano when I'm actually playing. The rest of it is okay. I need to figure out what tunes Donald Vega's playing with Ron Carter, because if I happen to get called, I don't want to be, cramped trying to figure out all this music in 2 days. Or I want to know, I keep an eye. That's how I use Facebook. Facebook it can be a great tool, because people post too much of what they're doing. It sounds crazy. I'll be practicing, and people put their whole schedule, all the songs they got on. I'm like, man, this is perfect. Because I know exactly what I need to do. So I'm practicing that, writing it down, so I have a way to evaluate where I'm at. So when I go to sit in a club, somebody says, oh yeah, do you know this? Yeah, I know it. They're like, why do you know all these tunes? I'm like, because that's my job, that's my business. If I'm not going to be serious about it, then I can just go eat banana bread. So that's how I do it. Somebody else had a question?
Yeah, this is kind of sort of related to running too. When I used to run, a way that I would sometimes evaluate myself is I would schedule a race. So that way I kind of had a performance idea. I was just wondering if you do that with piano at all. Maybe not a performance necessarily, but a situation where you specifically kind of try to put yourself in this particular point down the road so that you're staying honest about any...
Oh yeah. I think everybody should do that. When I get my own gigs, like I did a Margaret Miller tribute in November at Dizzy's. Like I have these markers. I'm like, okay, I need to learn all these Margaret tunes. He was my friend. He used to send me music. I said, they asked me, what do I want to do? I said, I'm going to do a Margaret tribute. That way it forces me to be in a situation where I have to learn these 20, 30 songs. Okay, then before that, I think they asked me to do a Pittsburgh tribute. So everybody in the band was from Pittsburgh, and we learned all this Pittsburgh music. People from Pittsburgh who wrote songs. So when I have gigs, like I have this gig coming up here next week, I've been telling myself I'm going to learn Lush Life. So I'm like, I'm going to play Lush Life. So I have no choice. So just like you said, just like in running, I have these situations, like if I get a gig or if I'm playing with some friends, I'll say, hey, let's do these tunes. Like in January, I did a Cedar Walton tribute at Dizzy's. They asked me to do. His wife was there and the whole band. So that forced me to learn all these Cedar Walton tunes. I'm like, this is perfect. That kind of keeps me up to where I should be and know what's actually going on. I think all you guys should do that. I think you're going to have to. You're going to have a gig. All this information I'm giving you is not just because I'm a nice guy. You're going to have to put together a gig where you go out, you're going to have to pick tunes, you're going to have to talk to the club, you're going to have to get a website together, you're going to have to get all this stuff together. So that's why I say it's important to record the information and take notes. Because if you don't, it's going to be a lot harder. Yeah.
This might be really general, but how do you stay motivated? After practicing for so long, it gets arduous after a while. What keeps you going?
Yeah. There are days where I just don't want to do it. And honestly, some of those days are the best days. Like I said, make yourself do it when you don't feel like it. But then, there are those periods where you do get down, and you do have to take a break. There's some people who just say, just keep going at it. And it's kind of like a sport. There's a certain point where you need to say, okay, it's time to take a vacation. Kind of reset, think about some other things, and see where you're going. That's one of the reasons why I have goals and a plan, and I write it down, so I can kind of say, what have I done? Is this manageable? Okay, is it reasonable what I've done? Am I progressing or am I just killing time? And if I say, you know what, I am learning more. It might not seem like it to you. Someone else can definitely see it. But for me, I don't always want to have to go to Ron Carter or to Barry Harris and say, hey, am I getting better? First of all, they'll tell me, and I might not hear the answer I want to hear, but I know they'll be honest with me. But second of all, I want to be able to evaluate myself before I even get to that point, so I can say, yeah, okay. So a lot of it is just rehashing or going over what I did in the past, so you're going to have those bumps in the road. That's normal. But at the end of the day, different people have different things that motivate them. Some people, money motivates them. Money doesn't really motivate me. If I did, I'd be on Wall Street. I have friends who are millionaires. Now, I'm not going to say I don't like it. But at the end of the day, music, that motivates me. When I get up, first thing I think of is I need to practice. But I have an order of doing things, so by the time I get to that, I know how to accomplish it for me.
Which podcasts do you listen to?
And it all depends what I'm into. Sometimes it's sports podcasts, sometimes it's money podcasts. Like I said, it's interesting because, like I said, Facebook, it can be a bad thing or a good thing. So if I see something that I don't know anything about, which is one of my goals too. She asked what my goals was for this year. To find out something at least once a week. Learn about something I don't have any clue about. Just find out something, And I say I made that goal because if I'm in a gig and I'm talking to somebody on a break, I don't want to talk to them about music if they're not bringing it up. But if they want to talk about this 1957 Thunderbird, I got to figure out what am I going to say. I don't want to be there and be like, at a certain point, they're just going to be like, well, nice meeting you. You're not going to know everything. But yeah, for me, it's just random stuff. It might be about money, wealth, cars, random statistics. You'd be shocked what you find out. Yeah.
Were you as avid as exerciser as you are now in
No.
college?
When I was with Winton, I weighed 216 pounds. And now today I weigh 159. When I'm in shape, I'm like 149. But one day I said, you know what? One of my goals for the year was, I'm going to try to accomplish something I do not like doing at all. And that was running. I said, I want to deal with that part of my brain and see what it takes to do that. So that's kind of how I got started. And I said, well, let me do a mile. That's enough. Did a mile. 3 days later, turned it a mile and a half. And it was 2, and then I got to 3. I was like, well, what if I could run 5? And then it just kept going. And one day I was at a jazz club, and I ran 8. And the bartender said, that's almost a half marathon. I was like, nah, that's too far. A marathon, no. I was getting scared. And I did the math, and I was like, well, 8 out of 13, that's over half. So let me just try and go out and see how far I can run for an hour. I did 40, 50 minutes. And it was close to 13. I was like, okay. Yeah, I'm doing something. So no, I wasn't.
Going off that question will help you push through that struggle of doing something that you straight up don't enjoy, and will help you get to.
I can see
seem
the
like you
results.
honestly like it.
I could see the results because every day I would write down what I would do. Okay, today I ran 10 minutes. After a week I ran 20 minutes. Then it was 40 minutes. So I could physically see. I remember when I couldn't run 1 minute. So I was like, I'm making progress, and I could see my weight go 215, 210, 195. I was like, I gotta buy more clothes. I could see it. My mom was like, are you okay? Are you sick? What's going on? Are you eating? So that's why I say it's good to keep a log and evaluate what you're doing, because I can see it myself as well as other people.
Is that what you do with your other goals that you post as well throughout the year?
Yeah.
Not only track your goals, but you track your
Yeah.
as well?
Like in my music log, I can see exactly where that's one of the reasons why I go in order. Because even if I don't write it down, I know where I left off. Like with the Monk songs, I'm on Animal now. And I for me, it's kind of like, I know I can handle 3 songs a week. It's reasonable. so that I can kind of evaluate if I'm ahead or behind. So, what were you gonna say?
I was just curious, so you would say exercise is kind of directly proportional to helping you just go along as
Yeah.
a musician?
Yeah, it is. I think it's very similar. The same parts of the brain.
Yeah.
Just practicing. A lot of people say, well, how do you run for 20 miles? I was like, well, how do you practice for 5 hours? They're like, well, that's easy. And I'm like, it wasn't easy when you started. You know, you have to build up to that. But you got to start somewhere.
How do you then prioritize, this can go musically too, like you're up till 3, 4 in the morning, you have a late show, and you have to get up and do something at 7, and like 8 the next morning, and it sounds like you get up and run in the mornings?
Yeah, for me, I figured out when I'm the most productive, and that's morning, because I know everybody else is probably asleep. And I want to get done what I need to get done first. That's one of the things my brother talked about in the book. He said, the stuff you know you absolutely need to get done, you need to do. Don't put it off. Because the longer you put something off, the less chances of it getting done on. That's one of the reasons why I run in the morning. The other thing is just because I know if I do it later in the day, I'm probably not going to be as productive at running because I'm tired from sitting at the piano and phones and texting and email and all this other stuff. You know, so. But I still get up early, even if I have a late gig.
You just push through it?
Yeah. You know, like this week, next, I got some rough weeks. I challenge any of y'all to come out with me. You're going to be shocked. Ask Jeremy and Adrian. They've come out. I said, come hang out with me for a day. They're like, well, I can't run that far. I said, I got a bike for people like you. Yeah, I said, just a day. So, you had a question?
Well, I was just thinking about you transcribing. And what do you do with those 4 to 8 bars that you can play? Because I know a lot of times I'll transcribe and be able to play it fine, but I don't really do much with it. Do you like analyze what they were doing, or?
For me, I figure out different ways to use that information. Okay, a lot of people will transcribe something and play it verbatim. That's not what I do. I can do that, and the goal is to do that, but I won't do that during the solo. It's like if you're driving home. There's many ways that you can get to your house. Might not be the most direct or the fastest, you know, but I might be playing something like Spud Powell. So the solo. Okay, so it might start like that, and I might say, well, he went down. Maybe I can go up. So I start figuring out different permutations of what he did that actually works. That's mine, based upon that. And then from there, who knows where you can end up. You know, but I would have never thought of that if I wouldn't have transcribed it. You know, different lines he might have played. Maybe I might go, that's how he ended this solo. Maybe I might go. It's exactly what he played, but it's parallel motion. So I'm taking those ideas and making it my own. You know, or I could go. And he starts off the song. You know, maybe I might want to go. Which is the same thing, exactly backwards. You know, but I would have never thought of that if I didn't transcribe it. You know, so. Another question?
Do you keep like written catalogs of all your transcriptions? Do you write them all out, or you just?
I used to write them down when I was in college. Now I don't write them down. I just memorize them.
That's just like the progression it went. Like it was necessary during college for you to do that, but you.
I did it in college because mainly my undergrad degree, at Berkeley it was called a professional music degree, and I was able to pick all the courses I wanted. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I picked all the ear training courses they had. I took ear training. I mean, I had the basics ones they had, but then they had a whole bunch of other ones, like A-Tone 1, A-Tone 2, Advanced 1, Advanced 2. I said, when I get out of here and I'm playing with all these people, I need to be able to hear immediately what's going on. You know, so at that time I was like, I need to write it down, you know, so I can see it and hear it. And that's a skill in itself. That's why some people are good at taking notation, you know, or doing big band transcriptions or whatever. Now, I can still hear it. I don't necessarily write it down because I'd rather take that time and learn more of another solo. I mean, but I can do that. So.
How do you kind of divorce yourself from reading music to just kind of playing it, just being able to hear it and play it? That was worded very poorly.
It really comes down to what is the situation. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
If I'm in a rehearsal, Jazz at Lincoln Center, we got to go through 30 songs a day. I'm just trying to look at what's there and keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know, there is no divorce there.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, for a situation where, you know, I can actually play, on that type of gig, you're not really soloing a whole lot. It's a lot different if you're in a quintet situation or a quartet. You know, then I'm trying, for me, I try to memorize most of my music. I don't want to be reading it, you know, because it's like, to me, it's like a fence. I can do it, but when it comes time to solo, I don't want that wall there. I want to be able to just freely play and not have to be constantly thinking, okay, this is F7, this is B over C coming up. Because you're thinking as well as improvising. So that right there is going to slow you down. If I know what it is, I can automatically say bam and play it. You know, that's why like when we did the piano duo thing, I know all the songs. I know what the changes are. If I was sitting there trying to figure out the changes, there's no way I'd be able to hear what he's doing in real time and play it back or be able to figure out what I want to do. You got to know the stuff. You know, if you're reading it, okay, that's a skill too. That's why there's great recording studio guys in Hollywood. They're great at doing that. That's another reason why there's great musicians that improvise, like Miles Davis' group. You know, it's not that they can't read, because they definitely are great readers too. I mean, Ron Carter went to Eastman. He's got a master's degree. But it's the difference of knowing when to say when and when you have to separate. But that just comes from practice and being in different situations. You know, that's why you might want to set up a band. Sometimes I call cats to my house. I say, we're just going to read through charts. No solo. They're like, what? Oh my gosh, I can't make it. Like, here we go again. You know, but that's a part of the music that you're going to have to deal with. You know, some people just want to play. If you're fortunate to do that, great. But most of the gigs that really pay good, you have to do more than just play. So, another question? Yeah.
What do you think's the biggest thing you need to achieve a goal, whether it be in music, fitness, writing, whatever?
The biggest thing, for me, the biggest thing is being happy. You know, if I'm happy what I'm doing, whether it's music, whether I'm running, fitness, it could be reading a book, science. If I'm happy, then I'm cool. For me, that's playing music and, you know, getting out, get some exercise, meeting some people and travel. You know, but ultimately, people can tell, I think, you can tell when somebody likes what they do. And that makes a big difference. There's some musicians I know who do not like what they do. And they just complain all the time about it. I'm like, man, you working. What are you complaining about? I know guys right now in New York City. I'm going to see them later tonight. I already know where they're coming from. Man, I did 3 gigs a day. This is the 6th day of doing that. I'm like, that's great. You know? We're playing with all these heavyweights. It's just different perspective. So, another question? All right, yeah, so that kind of leads up to a couple of the other things I want to say. I know we don't have a whole lot of time. But I gave you guys these contracts. You can kind of look through them. They're pretty self-explanatory. It's broken down where they give information about each section. You know, lots of times you'll get a contract. You'll be like, what does this mean? This actually explains each section. So if you need this, you can just kind of read through it and say, oh, okay, this is what it means. This is what I can take out. You can find plenty of contracts online and alter them. but this will just kind of give you a general overview of what they're saying in basic layman's terms. So I'm not going to go through all this now because we don't have the time, but you can read it on your own and see actually, what you can use and what you can't use. But one of the other things I want to tell you guys is response time is really important for gigs. You have to respond quickly, especially in today's age. Might sound like common sense, but a lot of people just don't respond. They say, oh, I'll get to it, and then forget. There's too many people out here who do what you do not to respond. Now, whether that's email, text, or phone, however you get contacted, you have to be aware of that. To be honest, a lot of your generation does everything by text, and that's cool, but when you get to the bigger gigs, everything is email or a phone call, because that's a viable form of communication. So if you're going to hire somebody for a gig, or they're going to hire you, usually if it's over $300 or $400, they're probably going to send you some type of email. If it's a friend or something, it's kind of whatever. You know where they're coming from, you trust them. But your response time is going to be the difference between you getting a gig and not getting a gig and not getting a future gig. Lots of times, I'll get an email or a text that's sent out to me and 6 other piano players. And the reason I got the gig is because I responded first. It's not because I'm better than them, and I know the other guys. And a lot of it's luck of the draw. They might have been on a plane, they might have been on a gig, they might have been on a train, whatever it is. But that response time is super critical. The more you put it off, the less chances you have of working. All right? So think about that. Make sure you always have a business card. I know a lot of you guys take people's information and put it in your phone. A lot of deals people I make, they don't want to be putting their number in your phone. A lot of people with money, they got 20 seconds to talk to you. They're not going to be talking to you putting something in their phone. Somebody who has time to do that, they might want to do that. Let's either say, hey, thanks for coming out. I'm glad you brought so-and-so. Here's my card information. A lot of people just take it to get out of your face. But you don't know what they're going to do with it. I've been to people's homes 2 years later, walked in and saw my business card on the refrigerator. I was like, I don't even use that card anymore. They're like, oh yeah, we happen to have it. Just threw it up there. And that's how we found you. We need a piano player, and every time I go to get ice cream, it's right there. I was like, okay. So something as simple as that. So if you can get a business card, they're cheap now. You can get them on Vista Print or whatever for like $20. Get it. So I would do that. The other thing too is make sure you have a current biography. Current photos, good photos. You could do it now, even if you can't hire somebody with your phone. Just make sure it's got whatever you want to portray. Make sure it's in the photo, and make sure you have somebody who looks at it who's not a musician. A lot of musicians will ask their friends to look at something, and that's one of the worst things you can do. And it's not because they're not trying to help you. It's that most musicians see and hear the same thing. If you really want to know if your product's going to work, no matter what it is, ask somebody who has nothing to do with it. Like I said with my mom, they'll see stuff I would have never even thought of looking at the man's feet playing the drums. Because I'm thinking about the music. But you have to have someone look at all those different things. So make sure you get that together. Biography, the photos. If you have a website, keep the itinerary current. The other thing I was going to say, when you put stuff on YouTube, make sure it represents what you want people to see and hear. Don't put something up there just for the sake of putting something up. You're almost better off not having it up there. And I'll tell you, this is how it works. I'm getting ready to do this festival. I'm the headliner in Arizona, April the 5th. I have to get a drummer. So I'm getting this guy from LA. And I know he's played with a friend of mine. So I'm checking him out on YouTube. And he's good, he can play. But I'm looking at all the stuff going around him in the video. And this just happened to be randomly one of the ones I picked. There's other ones that are produced, which are great. All this other stuff is it's not an issue of his plan, but I was like, this is a prime example of what not to do. People run around in the background. I mean, it's just the lights are flickering. It's just craziness. You know, so you got to make sure that whatever you put up there is going to be accessible for a company or person to view. That if they want to repost it on their site and it's a company like a Target, it's okay. Because that can come back to bite you. There's times when I look at stuff on YouTube when I have to hire people, and I'm like, I'm not hiring this guy. And that happens all the time. You know, one time I had to tell a friend of mine, a bass player, man, you need to take that video down, because that is not going to help you. It's hurting you. He didn't believe me. I was like, watch. And he didn't get some gigs, and I said, it's because you only have 4 videos up there, and the ones you have are they're not happening. So make sure you put up stuff that's representative of who you are and what your brand is. Whether that's wearing a hat, a bow tie, a suit, whatever that is, people need to see some type of consistency. Because if you're not consistent, they're going to be like, what is this guy trying to, what is he doing? For instance, whenever you see the Marcelluses, they're always clean. They got a suit and a tie. I was on a gig at the Museum of Fine Arts, Natural History with Run DMC this weekend. And I told the drummer, it was his first gig, I said, man, put on your tie, because if not, he'll send you home. So he put on his tie, and then he walked in, and the percussion player didn't have a suit jacket or a tie. He said, man, let me talk to you. And the drummer was like, oh man, thanks. And that's not the first time. A good friend of ours, I seen him send the drummer home. And this is a very popular drummer. He sent the cat home on the gig to get his clothes. He was like, man, you know how long? He's like, figure it out. So I'm gonna have to go buy something. Well, you know, so make sure that your attire is what it needs to be. Okay, whether that's a suit or whether black and white, whatever the code is, just make sure that you're not the person who's going to do it. All right? Okay, so that should be good. Richard, before you... All right.